There is a kind of prison that has no bars, no locked door, no guard standing watch, no chains you can point to and show someone else. It is built from the inside, from years of being told you were too much or not enough, from wounds that never fully closed, from shame that convinced you the best parts of your life were already behind you, from a version of yourself you've been carrying around that was shaped by someone else's words, someone else's cruelty, someone else's fear. And the terrifying thing about that kind of prison is that it feels like home after a while. You stop rattling the bars because you forget the bars are there. You start to organize your life around the walls. You make peace with the smallness. You call it being realistic. You call it humility. You call it knowing your place. But God calls it something else entirely. He calls it a lie you were never meant to believe. And today, right now, in this moment, He is speaking directly to you, directly into that place you've learned to live in without ever admitting how much it suffocates you. You were never meant to stay here. Not in the grief that became your identity, not in the fear that became your flaw, not in the story someone else wrote about you that you've been living inside of, as if it were true. You were made to rise, and today, the rising begins. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you is going to reach somewhere deep, somewhere the self-help books and the motivational speeches haven't been able to get to. Because this is not about strategy. This is about the God who made you, who sees you, and who refuses to leave you where you are. I want to take you to a pool, not a pool of clean, sparkling water. This one was surrounded by 5 covered colonnades, 5 porches filled with the sick, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. People lying on mats in various states of despair, waiting for the water to move. The place was called Bethesda, in Jerusalem, and it was believed that when the water stirred, when the surface rippled without wind, the first person to step in would be healed. So everyone waited. They waited on their mats, under those stone porches, with the smell of human suffering thick in the air, watching the surface of the water for any sign of movement. Among them was a man. John 5 tells us he had been an invalid for 38 years. 38 years. I want you to sit inside that number for a moment. Don't let it pass over you like a statistic. 38 years is not a season. It is not a phase. 38 years is most of a lifetime. It is children being born, growing up, and having their own children. It is wars beginning and ending. It is an empire shifting. It is the entire span of time between youth and the edges of old age. This man had been lying at that pool, in that condition, for 38 years. We don't know his name. The Bible doesn't give it to us, and I think that might be intentional, because namelessness is part of what long-suffering does to a person. You stop feeling like someone with a name. You start feeling like a condition, an inconvenience, a problem without a solution. He had come to Bethesda hoping at some point, long ago, for his moment, for someone to help him get to the water when it stirred, for the miracle to land on him. But 38 years had passed, and the miracle had not landed. And then one day, Jesus came to the pool. The Bible says Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had been in that condition for a long time. This is not a small detail. Jesus walked through the full scene, past all the other suffering bodies, past all the other desperate stories, and he saw this man, and he knew. He didn't need the man to give a presentation of his suffering. He didn't need documentation of his years of waiting. He already knew. He asked the man a question. Do you want to be made well? Now, at first read, that question can seem almost cruel. Of course he wants to be healed. Why else would he be there? But Jesus was not asking out of ignorance. He was asking because he understood something that the man had perhaps lost touch with, the will to rise. 38 years of waiting can do something to a person's desire, not because they're weak, but because repeated disappointment is its own kind of conditioning. Every time the water stirred, someone else got there first. Every time a year ended, he was still on the mat. Every time someone walked past him on two healthy legs, whole and free. Eventually, and this is one of the most quietly devastating truths about long suffering, you can stop wanting the healing because wanting it hurts too much. You protect yourself from the hope because the hope, when it goes unfulfilled again, is worse than having no hope at all. So, when Jesus asks, "Do you want to be made well?" he is asking the man to look inward, to check, to find out if the desire is still there or if the years have buried it. And listen to how the man responds. He doesn't say yes. He doesn't say, "With everything in me, please heal me." He says, "Sir, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." He answers a question about his desire with an explanation of his obstacles. I want you to feel the weight of that. He has been waiting so long, trying so hard, failing so repeatedly, that his answer to "Do you want to be healed?" is essentially, "Here is why it hasn't worked. Here is why it won't work. Here is the system I've been trying to navigate and why the system keeps failing me." He is so accustomed to the cage that he can give you a detailed map of its walls. Maybe you've done this. Maybe someone has asked you, "What do you want your life to look like?" And instead of answering, you've started listing all the reasons it's not possible. All the ways you've tried and failed. All the people who didn't show up when you needed them. All the timing that was wrong. All the circumstances that worked against you. When the cage has been home long enough, we stop talking about what's outside it. We talk about the cage. And Jesus, beautiful, disruptive, relentless Jesus, does not engage with the man's explanation at all. He doesn't help him figure out a better strategy for getting to the water first. He doesn't set up a support system. He doesn't address the problem the man identified. He speaks past it entirely. Get up, pick up your mat and walk. 3 commands, no debate. No acknowledgement of the 38 years. No long discussion about the obstacles or the failures or the system that kept letting him down. Just get up, pick up your mat, walk. And the man got up. The Bible says it simply, almost matter-of-factly, the way you'd report ordinary news. He picked up his mat and walked. The muscles that hadn't carried his weight in 38 years suddenly carried it. The legs that had been useless became useful. The body that had defined his limitation became the vehicle of his freedom, in a moment, with a word. But here is the part of this story that stops me every time. Later, Jesus found him in the temple, and he said to him, "See, you are well again. Stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you." Now, theologians have wrestled with this passage. I'm not here to turn this into a doctrinal debate. But what strikes me about it is this. Jesus came back to him. He tracked him down in the temple specifically to say something more. It suggests that the healing of the body was not the full story. The man needed more than his legs working. He needed to understand that freedom, once given, required something of him. A different way of living. A new relationship with choices. A life that matched the miracle. You can be set free and walk back into bondage. You can have the chains removed and reconstruct them with your own hands. Healing, freedom, rising, these are not just things that happen to you. At some point, they become things you choose to live with. The man at the pool received a miracle, but the miracle was a beginning, not an ending. The hard, beautiful daily work of living free was still ahead of him. And the same is true for you. Right now, I want to speak to whatever has kept you on your mat, because you have one. We all do. For some of you, the mat is a relationship that ended and took your sense of identity with it. For some, it's a diagnosis, a word a doctor said that rearranged their entire sense of what their future could hold. For some, it's failure, a business that collapsed, a ministry that fell apart, a reputation that was damaged by something you did or something that was done to you. For some, It's grief so deep that moving forward feels like a betrayal of what you lost. For some, it's addiction or anxiety or a depression so chronic that you've started to think it's just your personality. You've been lying at your particular pool for a long time, and Jesus is standing in front of you right now, asking the same question he asked the man at Bethesda. Do you want to be made well? Not, do you deserve it? Not, have you been faithful enough, tried hard enough, believed perfectly enough? Not, have you paid sufficient dues? Just, do you want it? Because the wanting matters. Not because God's power is somehow dependent on your desire. He is God. He is not limited by your feelings. But because what He is inviting you into requires your participation. He could have walked past the man at the pool. He could have let the years pile higher. Instead, He stopped and asked a question that called the man back to his own desire. He is calling you back to yours. What did you want before the waiting made you afraid to want it? What did you believe about your life before the disappointments taught you to believe smaller? Who did you think you could become before someone's words or actions or silence convinced you to settle? Go back there, not with reckless denial of everything that has happened, with honesty, with the willingness to feel how much you still want, what you thought you'd lost the right to want. God can work with desire. He cannot work with a heart that has shut down entirely. If our messages have blessed or encouraged you, please consider supporting us so we can keep spreading God's love and light to more hearts. You'll find the Ko-fi support link pinned below. Now, I want to address something that the man's response reveals, and it's one of the most common things I see in people who've been in long seasons of pain. The tendency to define yourself by the system that failed you rather than by the God who made you. The man's whole answer was about the pool, about the water, about the other people who got there first. His entire frame of reference was the mechanism he'd been depending on, and the mechanism kept failing. But Jesus came to show him that he had never been dependent on the pool. He had been dependent on what he believed about the pool. And the moment Jesus spoke, the belief shifted and the body followed. What system have you been depending on that has consistently failed you? What mechanism have you been watching, waiting for it to finally work in your favor, while God has been standing right beside you, ready to bypass the whole thing? God is not limited by the systems that have failed you. He is not contained by the opportunities you've missed, the connections you didn't make, the timing that went wrong, the door that closed when you needed it to open. He moves outside of all of that. He opens paths that don't exist on any map you've been consulting. Isaiah 43, verse 19. And I want you to hear this deeply. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. Not a familiar thing, not a repaired version of the old thing, a new thing. Your breakthrough may not look anything like what you've been expecting. The job may come through a conversation you haven't had yet. The healing may come through a doctor you haven't met yet, a prayer you haven't prayed yet, a surrender you haven't offered yet. The restoration in your family may begin with you doing one small, brave thing that seems to have nothing to do with the outcome you're hoping for. God is creative. He is not constrained by your imagination of how it should go. Stay open. Stay willing to be surprised. And here is something else I need you to hear, because I think it is central to why some of us stay on the mat longer than necessary. Freedom can be frightening. This sounds absurd. Of course, we want to be free. Of course, we want the limitation gone, the pain healed, the trap opened. But the man at Bethesda had built his entire life around being at the pool. His identity was organized around the mat. His daily routine, his relationships, his self-understanding, all of it had been structured by the condition. If he got up and walked, everything would change. Not just the good things, everything. Who would he be without the limitation that had defined him for 38 years? That is a terrifying question to face. If God heals the grief, who are you without it? If He restores the relationship, what do you do with the armor you built while you were alone? If He opens the career door, can you handle what comes with it? The exposure, the responsibility, the possibility of failing publicly instead of privately. Freedom requires you to become someone new. And becoming someone new means letting go of the old version of yourself that, as painful as it was, at least felt familiar. God is not just asking you to receive a miracle. He is asking you to become the person who can live in the miracle. That is why He came back to the man in the temple. That is why He told him, "Go and sin no more." Because free people have to make free choices. Because the miracle opens the door, but you have to choose every day to walk through it. I want to talk about what rising actually looks like. Because it rarely looks the way we picture it. We imagine it as dramatic, a sudden shift, a morning where you wake up and everything feels different, an emotional breakthrough that reorders your entire life in a single afternoon. Sometimes it does happen that way. God is not limited to the slow, but for most people, rising looks like this. It looks like getting up on a day when you genuinely do not feel like getting up, and getting up anyway, because you've made a decision that you are no longer letting feelings be your landlord. It looks like speaking differently about yourself, not with false confidence, not with performances of strength you don't possess, but simply removing the words that have been reinforcing the cage, stopping the sentences that begin with "I could never," "people like me don't," and "that's just how I am." It looks like taking one small action in the direction of the life you believe God has for you, even when you can't see the whole staircase, just the first step. It looks like going back to the thing you walked away from, the calling, the creative work, the relationship you owe an honest conversation to, the prayer habit that went cold, and beginning again without demanding an explanation for why God let the break happen. It looks like choosing on purpose to receive love from God, from the people He has placed in your life, instead of deflecting it because you've decided somewhere along the way that you don't quite deserve it. Peter is a man worth thinking about here. Peter denied Jesus 3 times in the space of a single night, after looking Jesus in the eye and promising he would never do such a thing. He failed at the exact moment it mattered most, in the most public and personal way imaginable. And then Jesus died. Peter did not just carry guilt, he carried the particular unbearable weight of knowing that his last meaningful interaction with the person he loved most was a betrayal. If Peter had been left alone with that, it would have finished him. He would have stayed on his mat forever. And the early church, the movement that would carry the gospel to the ends of the earth, would have had no Peter in it. But Jesus rose, and one of the first things He did, one of the very first things, was make sure Peter was specifically mentioned. Mark 16, verse 7. The angel at the empty tomb tells the women, "Go, tell His disciples and Peter that he is going ahead of you into Galilee." And Peter, 2 words, enormous weight. In a world of 300 people, when you specifically name someone, it means something. Jesus made sure Peter knew the message was for him, not just the disciples as a group. Peter, by name, was called to the meeting. And then, in John 21, Jesus found Peter by the water, back fishing, back to the life before, and He restored him. 3 times He asked, "Do you love me?" Matching the 3 denials with 3 declarations. Not to torture Peter with the memory, but to heal each wound at its source. He did not let Peter stay on the mat of his failure, and He will not let you stay on yours. Whatever you have done, whatever has been done to you, however far the distance feels between where you are and where you thought you'd be, the risen Jesus is calling you by name to a meeting. He is making sure the message gets to you. Get up, pick up your mat, walk. The man at Bethesda lay on that mat for 38 years, and then he walked because someone stopped and saw him and spoke to what was still alive inside him. Even after all those years of waiting had done their best to extinguish it, the desire to rise was still there, buried under explanations and disappointments, and a detailed map of why it wasn't possible, but still there, still flickering. Jesus didn't give up on the flicker. He breathed on it. That is what he is doing with you today. He is not looking at your mat and shaking his head. He is not calculating how many times you've tried and failed and deciding whether the number is too high. He is not reviewing your record to determine if you've earned the raise. He is walking towards you. He is stopping. He is asking you the question that only you can answer. And when you say yes, with whatever is left of your voice, with whatever is left of your faith, even if it's the size of a grain of mustard seed, he is going to speak something over you that will move through your body and your mind and your circumstances like a word that cannot return empty. Get up. Pick up your mat. Pick up your history, your wounds, your story, all of it. Pick it up and carry it with you, because your story is not your shame, it is your testimony. And walk into the life you were made for. Walk into the calling that's been waiting. Walk into the freedom that was purchased for you at a price you cannot pay back. Only receive. You were never meant to stay on that mat. You were never meant to watch from the side while other people's water moved and your pool stayed still. You were made before the foundation of the world, before you drew your first breath, before any of this happened. You were made to rise. And the rising is not someday. The rising is now. If this reached something in you today, if something shifted, even slightly, I want you to do something right now. Before the video ends, before you scroll to something else, write it in the comments. Just 3 words, I am rising. Say it, declare it. Let it exist somewhere outside of just your head and your heart, because you are, even if your legs are shaky, even if you don't feel it yet. Even if the mat is still warm where you've been lying, you are rising, and God is not going anywhere until you do. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone whose mat you know about, someone who's been at their pool longer than they should have to be. You might be the angel that makes sure the message gets to them. God bless you. Walk in freedom. It belongs to you.